It was an ordinary morning on the rugged coastline of South Africa. A group of local fishermen, seasoned by years of toiling with the tides, set out with their small boats, hopeful of a bountiful catch. Little did they know that destiny had prepared an encounter beyond their wildest dreams. As they navigated the churning waters of the Indian Ocean, the fishermen noticed a strange, enormous shadow cast upon the shore. The seasoned sailors exchanged bewildered glances as they drew closer to investigate. Their hearts pounded with excitement and trepidation as they beheld an astonishing sight. A massive, 60-foot-long Megalodon shark washed up on the pristine sands of the beach. The ancient behemoth lay there, its colossal body stretched across the shore, its maw still filled with dagger-like teeth, each the size of a man's forearm. Its obsidian eyes, now empty of life, stared out into the endless horizon as if guarding secrets from eons past. The fishermen could scarcely believe their eyes as they gathered around the colossal leviathan, their boats forgotten in the presence of this enigmatic giant. News of the astonishing discovery quickly spread throughout the coastal town, drawing curious onlookers. The sight of a megalodon, believed to be extinct for millions of years, was a revelation that defied explanation. Those who saw the photographs on social media said that the megalodon appeared to be well preserved, its colossal frame relatively intact, despite the ravages of time. Its skin, a mosaic of shades between deep grey and midnight black, bore scars and battle wounds, telling tales of a life spent hunting in the unforgiving depths of the ocean. As investigations continued, those who saw the images began to question whether other extinct creatures still roamed our planet. Although the story has captivated those who have heard it, scientists and researchers have not been entirely won over, and suggested multiple theories for what we are looking at. One scientist said that one of the reasons why this photograph is so interesting is because of the trucks that can be seen behind the shark, which gives off the impression that the shark is huge. However, they suggested that the shark could be real, but that forced perspective is being used here to make the shark appear bigger than what it actually is. Others said that due to the shape of the fins, along with the creature's coloration, the most likely candidate is a great white shark. Interestingly enough, although marine biologists and researchers have said that the megalodon is long extinct, that hasn't stopped fishermen from coming forward with strange encounters with giant sharks. The megalodon, a prehistoric apex predator that dominated Earth's oceans millions of years ago, continues to captivate the human imagination. Fossil records suggest that this colossal shark, with teeth the size of human hands, went extinct approximately 2.6 million years ago. However, in the realm of speculation, there remains a persistent belief that the megalodon could have survived into the modern day, lurking in the depths of our oceans. To assess the theoretical possibility of the megalodon's survival into the modern day, we must first examine the scientific evidence for its extinction. Fossil records indicate that the megalodon lived during the Miocene and Pliocene epochs, with the last known fossils dating back approximately 2.6 million years. These records show a gradual decline in megalodon populations, leading to their eventual disappearance. One prevailing theory for the megalodon's extinction is the cooling of Earth's oceans and changes in the availability of its primary prey, marine mammals such as whales. As the planet's climate shifted, so did the distribution of these prey species, potentially leading to a decline in megalodon populations. Furthermore, the fossil record shows no evidence of megalodon fossils from the Pleistocene or Holocene epochs, which span the last 2.6 million years, and this absence of physical evidence strongly suggests the species went extinct during that time frame. For the megalodon to have survived into the modern day, it would need a sustainable source of food to support its massive size and energy requirements. Historically, the megalodon primarily preyed on marine mammals, particularly whales. However, the global population and distribution of whales have undergone significant changes over millions of years. To survive, a modern-day megalodon would need to adapt to a vastly different ecological landscape. One argument is that the megalodon might have shifted its prey preferences or developed new hunting strategies. Alternatively, it could have expanded its diet to include a wider range of marine species. Nevertheless, the question remains, could a population of megalodons exist today without leaving any concrete evidence of their presence in the form of carcasses, prey remains, or biological samples? One of the greatest challenges in assessing the theoretical possibility of the Megalodon's survival is the sheer difficulty of detecting such a large and elusive creature in the vast and uncharted depths of our oceans. Our knowledge of the ocean's depths remains limited, and many regions remain unexplored due to the extreme pressures, darkness, and remote locations. Additionally, the oceans cover more than 70% of Earth's surface, making it nearly impossible to monitor every corner comprehensively. While advanced technologies like underwater drones and remotely operated vehicles have expanded our exploration capabilities, these tools are still limited in their scope and reach. The phenomenon of deep-sea gigantothermy is also cited by proponents of the Megalodon's survival. This concept suggests that larger animals in cold, deep-sea environments can maintain their body temperature more effectively than smaller animals, potentially allowing them to thrive at great depths where prey might be more abundant. Despite the fascination surrounding the possibility of the Megalodon's survival, the scientific consensus remains firmly skeptical. The lack of concrete evidence, such as recent sightings, biological samples, or specimens, is a significant hurdle to overcome. In a world where almost every corner has been explored and documented, it is highly unlikely that such a large and distinctive creature could remain hidden for so long. Furthermore, the Megalodon's survival would require a breeding population to maintain its numbers over time. To date, there have been no documented cases of Megalodon mating or the presence of juveniles, both of which would be crucial to sustaining a population. One of the most compelling aspects of the theory that the Megalodon survives to this day is the Mariana Trench, the deepest part of the world's oceans, as a potential refuge. The trench reaches depths of over 36,000 feet, or 10,900 meters, making it an inhospitable and largely unexplored environment. The trench's extreme pressure, darkness, and remoteness create conditions that defy human exploration, and it remains one of the least understood regions of our planet. Proponents of the Megalodon survival theory argue that the trench's extreme depths could serve as a sanctuary for the species. They suggest that the trench's isolation from the rest of the ocean, combined with its potential as a rich hunting ground for deep-sea prey, could have allowed the Megalodon to persist undetected. One of the primary challenges in assessing the theoretical possibility of the Megalodon's survival lies in the difficulty of detecting such a large and elusive creature in the vast and enigmatic depths of the Mariana Trench. Our knowledge of the trench remains limited due to technological constraints and the extreme conditions it presents. While advanced technologies like remotely operated vehicles and deep-sea submersibles have expanded our exploration capabilities, the trench's depths continue to pose significant challenges to investigation. The phenomenon of deep-sea gigantothermy, which suggests that larger animals can maintain their body temperature more effectively in cold, deep-sea environments, adds complexity to the equation. Back in 1918, a notable incident occurred involving a group of lobster fishermen who were operating out of Port Stephens, situated in Australia. During their fishing expedition, these fishermen were fortunate enough to have a sighting that could very well be classified as one of the most astonishing encounters with a marine creature ever documented. The creature in question was none other than a magnificent shark, which left an indelible impression on those who were present to witness its awe-inspiring presence. As described by the eyewitnesses, this extraordinary shark possessed a striking appearance, characterized by its ghostly white hue. However, what truly set it apart from any other shark known to mankind was its colossal size, measuring anywhere between 100 to 300 feet in length. David Stead said the following about the encounter. In the year 1918, I recorded the sensation that had been caused among the outside crayfish men at Port Stephens when, for several days, they refused to go to sea to their regular fishing grounds in the vicinity of Broughton Island. The men had been at work on the fishing grounds, which lie in deep water, when an immense shark of almost unbelievable proportions put in an appearance, lifting pot after pot containing many crayfish and taking, as the men said, pots and mooring lines. These crayfish pots, it should be mentioned, were about 3 feet 6 inches in diameter and frequently contained from 2 to 3 dozen good-sized crayfish, each weighing several pounds. The men were all unanimous that this shark was something the likes of which they had never dreamed of. In company with the local fisheries inspector, I questioned many of the men very closely, and they all agreed as to the gigantic stature of the beast. But the lengths they gave were, on the whole, absurd. I mention them, however, as an indication of the state of mind which this unusual giant had thrown them into, and bear in mind that these were men who were used to the sea and all sorts of weather, and all sorts of sharks as well. One of the crew said the shark was 300 feet long. Others said it was as long as the wharf on which we stood, about 115 feet. They affirmed that the water boiled over a large space when the fish swam past. They were all familiar with whales, which they had often seen passing at sea, but this was a vast shark. They had seen its terrible head, which was at least as long as the roof on the wharf shed at Nelson Bay. Impossible, of course, but these were prosaic and rather stolid men, not given to fish stories, nor even to talking about their catches. Further, they knew that the person they were talking to had heard all the fish stories years before. One of the things that impressed me was that they all agreed as to the ghostly whitish colour of the vast fish. The local fisheries inspector of the time, Mr. Peyton, agreed with me that it must have been something really gigantic to put these experienced men into such a state of fear and panic. End quote. While the idea of the Megalodon's survival into the modern day captures the imagination and fuels speculation, the scientific evidence and ecological considerations suggest that it is highly improbable. Fossil records indicate a gradual decline in Megalodon populations leading to extinction around 2.6 million years ago, coinciding with changing environmental conditions and shifts in prey availability. The challenges of detection in the vast, unexplored depths of our oceans also pose a significant obstacle to the theory of Megalodon survival. The absence of concrete evidence, such as recent sightings or biological samples, further diminishes the likelihood of its existence. In the realm of cryptozoology, where mysteries and legends abound, the idea of a living megalodon continues to intrigue and inspire, but until tangible evidence emerges, the scientific consensus remains firmly rooted in the belief that the megalodon is a creature of the distant past, its existence confined to the pages of Earth's history. Though many would remark that the size of the megalodon made it an incredible predator that helped to allow the creature to dominate the oceans during its reign, the truth is that the creature's large stature actually proved to be more of a hindrance in nature than an actual benefit. In order to support its massive body weight and muscle growth, the body of the megalodon had a tremendous metabolism that only caused the creature to require massive amounts of food and resources constantly available in its environment in order to not starve. This calorie requirement would have forced the megalodon to eat more than 2,500 pounds of meat a day just to survive, making it next to impossible to not starve if the creature found itself in an area void of a large abundance of natural prey. Given the fact that the diet of the massive shark was made up mostly of turtles and seals, the megalodon would have been forced to be in a constant state of predation just to meet its daily calorie requirements, even going so far as possibly eating its own young in times of stress and engaging in risky behaviors just to locate a possible food source that would most likely deplete in a short matter of time. Given the fact that the megalodon often traveled over vast distances, this led to high probabilities of winding up in new areas that did not contain an adequate food source and ultimately left the entire species incredibly vulnerable. These problems are only made worse when one takes into consideration how an environment can easily be changed in its resource availability by season, which would often mean that the megalodon would be forced to travel greater distances or be highly susceptible to starvation if any dramatic changes in climate occurred. Given the creature's massive size and its constant need for an adequate amount of calories just to survive, this led the creature to ultimately become a species that suffered from a high rate of competition with both neighboring species and its own kind. Though many times in the animal kingdom, having a much larger physique allows certain evolutionary advantages when it comes to the realm of competition, other times it can lead to a much higher resource scarcity for the species in question. The megalodon, due to its large size, was capable of eating a wider range of foods that included whales, schools of fish, turtles, and seals. Due to its food supply being made up of many different marine animals, the megalodon was constantly competing with those animals' natural predators for food. This also meant that their finely tuned ecosystem could only support a lower population density of the megalodon due to its constant competition with members of its own species. This translates into not only the megalodon being a mostly solitary marine animal, but a tremendously high risk in not finding a mate given their incredibly low population numbers. This translates into the much higher risk of inbreeding within the species when there is a lack of variation in the potential mates that will begin to manifest recessive genetic traits and birth defects in their offspring. The reason as to why not many predators have ever again reached the size of the megalodon, including different species of sharks that were around during the reign of the creature, has less to do with genetics and more to do with physics. In fact, many scientists speculate that the blue whale is the maximum size an animal can ever reach, given the fact that if a creature were any larger in volume, then the creature would begin to collapse under the stress of its own weight. The only reason why marine animals can get so much larger than land animals is due to the natural buoyancy the water provides to reduce stress on the creature. Unfortunately, in the case of the megalodon, this large size was responsible for a lot of added stresses and injuries to the creature, even when performing mundane tasks. Due to its sheer volume, when the megalodon would engage in long-distance travels or aggressive attacks, it would be forced to generate enough energy to move its body at high speeds, which only helped to cause more injuries and damages, of which ultimately proved to be more of a handicap than a benefit to the creature. The stresses and forces caused on the body of the megalodon when attempting to perform simple actions, such as redirecting and turning around, could have been more than just a nuisance to the creature, essentially making it vulnerable to smaller, more agile predators at the time that were already seen as a major competition for food resources. With all of the issues previously discussed surrounding food scarcity, a high competition for available resources, along with an incredibly insatiable caloric requirement just to survive, it comes at no added surprise then that, given these variables, the megalodon was an overwhelmingly solitary and territorial species. The megalodon would often find itself competing with its own young, of which could grow to rapid sizes fairly quickly, as well as other surviving members of its species its own age. Though this helped the megalodon spread out across the oceans of the world, it also meant that the creature would more commonly find himself isolated from other members of his species and dangerously aggressive with those of his own species if he came into contact with them. Similar to how sharks of the modern day will begin to eat their own young, as well as other smaller sharks in times of stress, this was a common tactic employed by the megalodon, especially during times of food scarcity and territorial claims. Though this is not an uncommon trait for many species in the animal kingdom, for the megalodon, this only helped to make their species far more incredibly vulnerable to catastrophic events and placed it at an even higher risk for extinction during its time. As many people are well aware of, the changing of the world has seen dramatic ups and downs all throughout the history of our planet. This includes several instances of heating events and cooling events spread out over millions of years that are responsible for a wide variety of extinction-level events seen in the variation of life on this planet. During the reign of the megalodon, the Earth saw just as many instances of change that drastically affected marine life. One of the main changes that potentially caused the extinction of the species was the cooling trend that started back in the Oligocene era. This trend led to far more glaciation at the poles of the planet, lower temperatures in the ocean, as well as geological events that changed currents and altered precipitation in many areas around the world. This change in climate would have forced the megalodon to move to warmer waters to be able to sustain its massive size and caloric requirements, warmer waters that would have continued shrinking over many generations as the trend reached a peak. It was around this time that the megalodon seemed to have vanished from the fossil record, which helps to support the evidence between the correlation of its extinction and the change in the climate. A researcher by the name of Catalina Pimiento has dedicated a lot of their time in the attempts to crack the code as to what could have caused the megalodon's extinction, and believes that they may have found the answer by looking at the size of the teeth of the species throughout time. After recording and comparing about 400 different specimens of the megalodon held at many different museums from around the world, Catalina Pimiento was able to accurately measure their final body size and mass at around the time the species went extinct. She found that not only did the biggest and smallest of the megalodon have roughly the same size with little variation, but that there appeared to be far more megalodon of a much larger size shortly before they became extinct. Although it is not known as to what could have directly caused this change, it still remains a key piece of evidence as to the theories of the cause of the megalodon's extinction. Unfortunately for the megalodon, evolution does not promote monoculture, and the only way to guarantee the safety of a species and its chances at survival is to promote genetic variation and adaptations throughout its species. Given the lack of genetic variation of the species, this could very well mean that disease or rapid changes in the environment were the main cause of extinction. Similarly seen in the case of the Gros Michel banana species that was completely eradicated by a single fungal plague. When a species contains little to no variation in its genetics, it becomes incredibly susceptible to specific diseases and the damage they can cause on their species. So, what do you make of these discoveries? Be sure to leave your questions and answers in the comments section below and help us to grow this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.